to read the motion too. Thank you very much, Ms. Harris. The acting MEC, like the speaker has already indicated yesterday that MEC Tate is not well. The acting MEC is going to be MEC Honorable Makalo. MEC Honorable Makalo, you may address the House for 40 minutes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. It's Honorable Mohali. Makalo is the name.
Oh my goodness. My apology.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, Honorable Premier, members of Executive Council, members of the Provincial Legislature, organized labor, principals, educators, and learners, school governing bodies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and the people of the Free State. Madam Deputy Speaker, I rise to present before this August House the Free State Department Education Budget Vote number 6. The presentation of this budget vote signals the turbulence of our times as the number of COVID-19 cases begin to increase. Let me take this opportunity to remind this esteemed House as the vision that underpins all our programs is to be a department that strives to ensure the progressive realization of universal schooling, improving quality of education, and eliminating historical disparities amongst the Free State citizens. Madam Deputy Speaker, we present today, while the nation is in mourning. Last week we laid to rest our sister, mother, friend, and a South African eminent ambassador to Denmark, Comrade Mandela. May the revolutionary spirit of this anti-apartheid activist, a leader in her own right, and a daughter of the struggle icon, former President Nelson Mandela and Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela, rest in power. As we know, the family confirmed that she had earlier tested positive for the virus. We mourn with the family, friends, and comrades alike. We also want to pay tributes to the struggle icon and the last remaining Livonia trialist, Enrum Langeni, who died on Wednesday. He was the last surviving member of the group of political activists, including Nelson Mandela, who were tried, convicted, and jailed for sabotage. The anti-apartheid activist died in hospital at the age of 95, just over a month since he celebrated his birthday. His life epitomizes heroism and humility. In his long life, he remained a beacon of ethical leadership and care for humanity in our own country and around the globe. Lala Ngotolo Isitalani. Honorable members, as the education fraternity, we have had our losses. Just last week, we have received the shocking news of a death after an unexplained collapse of a 13-year-old Noncedo Ndwandwa, a grade 7 learner from Amohelam Primary School in Botshabelo. Together with the Department of Social Development, we have already provided psychosocial services to the school and the bereaved family. On behalf of the department, we wish to take this opportunity to send our deepest condolences to the families of Noncedo, fellow learners, non-teaching staff, and teachers of Amohelam Primary School. Our thoughts and prayers are with you in your moment of need. As of 23rd July 2020, we have 760 teachers who had tested positive for COVID-19. Sadly, we already lost 3 teachers to this virulent pandemic. We convey our deepest condolences to their families, friends, and colleagues in these uncertain times. The depth of the loss is compounded by the COVID-19 restrictions that disallow us from mourning together. At the last reporting period before this address, an estimated 294 learners had also tested positive for the COVID-19 since the 8th of June, when the first grades returned to classes. We wish them much strength speedy and full recovery. We're delighted to announce that many of these learners have fully recovered. There are no COVID-19 related deaths of any learner that has been reported in the province so far. This confirms the advice received from the health experts that children in general are less likely to get or spread the COVID-19 and that they are less likely to get seriously ill from it. Honorable members, last week we celebrated the United Nations recognized Nelson Mandela International Day to honor the son of the soil who emptied himself for the benefit of humanity. Former President Mandela didn't just make impassioned speeches about peace and reconciliation between blacks and whites. He led by example. He demonstrated through deeds and not words that what it means to forgive, to be human, and to lead your people to the promised land. As a country, we would be doing a disservice to his memory and that of the freedom fighters of his generation if we don't return to the human values of humbleness, thrift, and service. We owe him, his generation of freedom fighters, and posterity the remaking of our province and country in his image. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the budget allocated for the department in the current financial year is 15.6 billion rand. Under Program 1, which is administration, an amount of 1.1 billion rand is allocated. Under public ordinary school, an amount of 12 billion rand. Under independent school subsidies, an amount of 102 million is made available. Under public special school education, we have allocated an amount of 645 million rand. Under ECD, an amount of 202 million is made available. Under infrastructure development, an allocated budget of 700 million rand is also been allocated. And lastly, under examinations and education-related services, government has allocated an amount of 697 million rand. Madam Speaker, speaking of the great Mandela, I'm pleased to announce that we have commissioned the services of University of the Free State to put together a book about the least celebrated Free State history in the liberation of our country, the 12 disciples of Nelson Mandela. We hope that the book will be completed later this year. The book seeks to honor the families of the 12 disciples, the people of the Free State and South Africa. The biggest honor will go to the only surviving member of the 12 disciples, our own octogenarian, Dr. Pule Matwa. As part of honoring Mandela and the generation of his freedom fighters, we must work without ceasing to make our schools an oasis of freedom, peace, unity, and social cohesion. Our schools must enable our young people to make a future for themselves, unhindered by the shackles of our ugly apartheid past. Success will only be based on ability and education, not birth or proximity to those who wield political power. Thus, we call upon all schooling communities in our province to join us in an all-out battle against social ills that bedevils our communities, and by extension, our schools. We must collectively help our learners to desist from drug abuse, alcohol abuse, premature sexual debate, unplanned pregnancies, practicing unsafe sex, and bullying, amongst others. As we remake ourselves in the image of Utatu Mandela, we are acutely aware that the terrain of the new struggle is different. Today, we are learning to coexist with a new enemy of COVID-19 that we cannot even see. In these uncertain times, it is poignant to recall the words of the revolutionary thinker and philosopher Karl Marx, who once opined that men and women make their history, but they do not make it as they please. They do not make it under self-selected circumstances, but under circumstances existing already, given and transmitted from the past. Madam Deputy Speaker, we welcome the televised announcement by President Ramaphosa last night regarding the Cabinet's decision that all public schools are to take a 4-week break starting from the 27th of July to the 24th of August this year. The President has also ordered that we allow grade 12s and teachers a break in the first week of the 27th to the 31st July. School management teams that to use the whole of the first week to wrap up work at school and returning with the teachers a week earlier for return of learners. And we also know that the president has ordered us that grade 7 learners, they are to return on the 10th of August. And the academic year is to be extended beyond the 2020 calendar year. Arrangements for different categories of special schools should also be made. And also, the establishment of a tax team comprising key stakeholders in the sector to deal with identified challenges. Madam Speaker, we still believe that learners are better at school than in communities and homes where infections are actually taking place. Education is very much part of our livelihood. While dealing with a completely new environment, we need to be afforded an opportunity and space to gradually settle in dealing with the new normal of operating under COVID-19, in line with the risk-adjusted differentiated approach in reopening schools. This break will give us an opportunity for schools to prepare for the return of more grades in school later in August. We appeal to school communities to continue with their work during the break. Parents, teachers, and learners alike are urged to continue with the schoolwork. Schools must make arrangements with parents for learners to get work or material for them to remain fully engaged during the breaks. During this period, the department will facilitate grade 12 community radio station lessons or broadcasts. We have already gave every grade 12 learners a copy of revision materials as well as grade 11 learners in selected subjects. We will continue to give grade 7 learners electronic support materials for languages and maths. We urge members of the public to protect the schools during the break to prevent theft and damage that was caused when schools were closed during the lockdown. It remains one of our biggest concerns when schools are targeted. The burglaries and theft of food supplies and other expensive items defeats our efforts to provide mainly for the poor and vulnerable learners who are always the hardest hit. We thank Honorable Khadija Brown, MEC for Finance, for allocating 45.5 million to the departments to help our schools to ramp up the safety of our learners, teachers, and auxiliary staff in our schools and to roll out catch-up programs, especially for grade 12 learners. We have never said we'll open schools at all costs. Our mission is to save lives and protect livelihoods, of which rescuing the 2020 academic year forms a key part. We accept the consternation from some parents, teachers, and learners. As a result, we are prepared to support learners in a new reimagined home education. This means all learners wishing to exercise their option of not embarking on school-based learning. They must properly negotiate with us through schools, circles, and district offices. The provision to deregister from formal schooling to do the homeschooling as defined in the relevant legislation has been suspended to cater for learners with underlying conditions. We encourage dialogue between parents, learners, and our schools. The traditional home education option remains open, and such learners must be registered with the provincial education authorities. Honorable Deputy Speaker, I must re-emphasize to this House that we have focused our energy and resources towards curbing the spread of COVID-19 in the province while gradually reopening our schools. As the President has said, the COVID-19 storm is upon us. We have a moral responsibility to tell the truth to our people that the COVID-19 pandemic is going to be here for a little while longer. We have no cure. We must learn, as I said earlier, to coexist with this novel coronavirus. Our best defense against this invisible enemy is a non-pharmaceutical measures of hand washing with soap, social distancing, and use of at least 70% alcohol-based sanitizers, and the mandatory wearing of face masks. We must understand that our schools are far more than just academic learning centers. We are the epicenter for health, hygiene, nutrition, public advocacy against social ills that bedevil our society. Thus, in the context of COVID-19, we have repurposed all our schools as epicenters of surveillance, contact tracing, and testing. Under National School Nutrition Program, We have also provided the COVID-19 basic essentials to all our NSNP schools to be utilized by voluntary food handlers when preparing meals for our children. This program is a national project that serves as an anchor of our pro-poor initiatives. In the 1920 financial year, the program provided nutritious meals to well over 592,581 learners in quintile 1 to 3 primary, secondary, as well as identified special schools. Due to socio-economic challenges experienced in communities as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, we have resolved with the concurrence of the National Basic Education Departments to extend the provision of nutritious meals to all learners, including those who get back at school. We are hard at work to achieve this imperative of fighting poverty. School management teams are directed to ensure that the NSNP continues during the break under safe and orderly conditions. The nutrition program budget for 2021 financial year is 431 million, and this enables us to reach over 696,000 learners. We have also appointed 3,446 voluntary food handlers for 10 months, and they would receive a stipend of 1,360 per person per month, with effective from the 1st of June 2020 to the 31st March 2021. Furthermore, in this financial year, we have appointed 103 NSNP assistants to be placed in 103 schools. The role of this NSNP assistant is to provide the much needed administrative support to schools so that they can adhere to Treasury prescripts of the NSNP conditional grant. Honorable Deputy Speaker, instead of panicking and warmongering, as a province, we are gearing ourselves for the largest matric examinations in history as a result of combining of the May-June senior certificate exams, the National Senior Certificate Supplementary Exam, as well as the full-time Matric 2020 examinations. Plans are at an advanced stage to conduct these examinations within the new terrain guided by the Health Department COVID-19 guidelines. We must put it on record as the class of 2020 will be examined on the full curriculum despite the 2019 induced disruptions. There will be no curriculum trimming for the grade 12 to maintain the same standard as the other matric learners before. Owing to COVID-19 health safety protocols, we are investigating the use of digital platforms to conduct examinations. The modernization projects will include such innovative measures such as electronic setting of question papers, e-assessments, and the e-marking. Our target for the National Senior Certificate pass rate is 90% pass rate and 40% bachelor passes. We're making a plug and call to all our grade 12 learners who have registered to write for examinations to please go and write their exams. You have arrived in grade 12, don't miss this opportunity to write. Honorable Deputy Speaker, I'm happy to announce that we have already begun with the basic rollout of the ICT. We have developed a 3-year plan to purchase laptops for office-based officials and teachers. An amount of 32 million, which was earmarked for teacher development, will be used for procurement of laptops for districts and head office in the following sections: curriculum, exams, teacher development, as well as circuit managers, and 700 teachers. Officials have been trained on the use of visual platforms for conducting trainings. In partnership with ETGP SITA, we will train 200 foundation-based teachers on the use of digital teaching platforms. The training intends to empower the teachers in the use and deployment of ICT for teaching and learning, while indeed raising the bar, Honorable Deputy Speaker. We plan to procure tablets for learners with comorbidities and the grade 12s as part of intensifying our support and mitigating the challenges of COVID-19 pandemic. Madam Speaker, last week, the Minister of Basic Education, Honorable Motshekga, spoke about the need for the new post-COVID-19 social impact for basic education sector. In this province, I am happy to report that we believe that the new social compact must be anchored on the universal rollout of e-learning. It is a no-brainer that the COVID-19 pandemic had to hasten the need to bridge the digital divide as a matter of necessity. This means the rethinking of the whole delivery of basic education is management and monitoring. Under integrated rural education development strategy, honorable members, I'm happy to announce that one of the key pro initiatives of this ANC-led provincial government, learner transport, has been successfully shifted from Department of Police, Roads and Transport since April 2019 to the department. This was a provincial cabinet decision to ensure greater synergy between schooling and those learners who need transport to our facilities. We have just concluded a learner transport roadshow where we met with school principals, circuit managers, and district directors to review and plan for the effective delivery of transportation of our learners under the new regime. We are now going to be involved through policy implementation and monitoring through the ecosystem of the learner transport. We are determined to build on the successes of this program since its inception. To demonstrate our seriousness on this project, an amount of 70 million rand has been set aside for learner transport in this financial year alone. Madam Speaker, as part of implementing this strategy, we have taken a bold step that the reorganization of rural schooling has to happen urgently. For the next 3 years, all non-viable farm schools with less than 50 learners or any school with more than 50 learners where a teacher teaches all the subjects across the grades will be closed as the circumstances do not promote quality teaching. Multi-grade teaching in farm schools is not a viable option for quality teaching. Most learners in these schools cannot complete schooling because they are not able to cope and are likely to drop out of the system. In terms of the learners traveling long distances to these schools, we are reviewing non-viable routes with the intention of closing them down. We will be moving our farm school learners from both the non-viable schools and the non-viable routes to the hostels. Madam Deputy Speaker, our department is currently having 39 farm school hostels accommodating 5,400 learners in the whole province at a yearly running cost of 84 million. The program is working very well and has real success stories to tell in terms of how we've managed to protect our rural learners as one of our most vulnerable communities. Learners have managed to complete their education and even go as far as registering at colleges and universities, and those are succeeding. We are now busy with the needs analysis and auditing of all available spaces and rooms in our hostels throughout the province. We will be moving our farm school learners from both the non-viable schools and non-viable routes to the new hostels. And in the 1920 financial year, we have commenced with the construction of Breda Farm School Hostel and Leboneng Farm School Hostel. Currently, the progress in this project stands at 14 and 19% respectively. Under early childhood development, Honorable Deputy Speaker, to ensure sustainable progress in laying the foundation of early education, the sector has decided to shift the function of the ECD from Department of Social Development to the Education Department. The function shift allows us to reimagine the whole concept of ECD. Provincially, we have begun our processes of auditing the existing ECD centers. A task team comprising of provincial departments of social development and our own officials has been established. And under the pre-grade R, which are those between 0 to the year of to the 4-year-olds, in attaining the objectives of the NDP of laying strong foundational skills and stimulation of early reading, an amount of 1 million will be used to train 100 pre-grade R practitioners on national curriculum framework as part of nurturing the holistic development of young minds. Additional 100 grade R practitioners who are involved in the upskilling of their qualification towards NPF level 4 and 5 respectively will be used in teaching of pre-grade R. We plan to increase this number by 150 grade R practitioners who will be enrolled towards an NPF for level 4 in Karib and Moteo districts. Madam Speaker, we have made great strides towards universalization of grade R in the province, wherein 71.8% of our primary schools have grade R as part of formal schooling. With the amount of 36 million, we plan to procure equipment, increase the number of primary schools offering grade R. And our plan is to have grade R in all our public schools by the year 2023 so as to improve access to a formal grade R program. And in improving quality of teaching, 112 grade R practitioners are expected to receive their diploma in grade R teaching. I want to thank the CETA for its continued financial support, and we plan to further award bursaries to 250 grade R teachers to upgrade their qualifications. Madam Deputy Speaker, speaking of strengthening the foundations of early learning also means focusing on literacy and numeracy in primary schools. We have put aside an amount of 4 million rand as part of funding the primary schools literacy and numeracy, known as LitNum strategy, which is currently being implemented as we address this house. Our plan for a heightened focus on reading for meaning is to roll out high-level training for our teachers on cutting-edge reading pedagogies. The fact that 78% of grade 4R learners do not reach the progress in international reading literacy study, international benchmark, reflects poorly on the current situation. However, it does not mean that 78% of these learners are unable to read anything, as it's sometimes incorrectly stated. To further boost the LitNum strategy, in 2018-19 year, we have fully resourced 43 township schools in Moteo districts with storybooks in Sesotho, Setswana, isiXhosa, and English, radios and audio books to develop reading skills of learners. And in the 2020-2021 financial year, we will complete phase 1 of the project by fully resourcing 21 primary township schools in Mangaung, which were partially resourced. And in addition, the one township primary schools in Machabeng area will receive storybooks, audio books, radios to support curriculum delivery. In 2021, we have launched the Maths for All campaign. We have rallied the community of the Free State behind this campaign, which leads to more schools offering mathematics compared to the maths literacy. We have invested enormously in mathematics, and it is time to see the results. In 2019, we have piloted district-based SBA moderations in grade 10 to 12 in Moteo and Lidweluputsu. This intervention seems to bear fruit. As such, we will continue with the pilot in these two districts in 2020, in line with COVID-19 regulations. As of 2020, we are tackling the languages, the challenges associated with the teachings of literature in Afrikaans and Sesotho home languages to deal with the continuous decline in performance in these two subjects. A dedicated program has been developed to respond to this underperformance. We will identify our support for progress learners by providing them with resource packs in English, Sesotho, Afrikaans, Setswana, isiXhosa, and isiZulu. These learners will receive additional support in Term 1 on visual literacy and reading strategies. In Term 3, these learners will receive support on creative writing. All grade 12 learners offering mathematics will be provided with question bank booklets, and those offering physical science will receive revised booklets containing all terms, definition, as well as question and answers from national question papers from 2014 until 2019. We have provided each grade 12 learner with copies of revision materials, question banks, assessment guidelines, and mind the gap study guides in all the big enrollment subjects. We have therefore intensified online support by developing websites in accounting, physical science, life sciences, and natural sciences. The intention is to avail written tasks, question papers, and subject material to both teachers and learners. Honorable Deputy Speaker, we have resolved that the future demands of us to roll out the skills for the future as part of the disruptive fourth industrial revolution. This strategy is anchored on the differentiated curriculum dubbed the three-stream model. This model is essential in breaking the cycle of poverty, improving career pathways, enhancing employability opportunities of our learners, while inculcating the culture of entrepreneurship. Our investment in growing the three-stream model will soon become apparent. For instance, since the introduction of CAPS 2. Performance in the technical vocational specialization subjects, such as the technical science in the NSC exam in grade 12, has topped above 90%. We are paying more attention to the less than ideal performance in the technical mathematics, which remains a national concern. Our Math, Science and Technology grant, which is known as the MST grant, amounts to 32 million, will be used to resource our schools in this category. In 2020, we will procure workshop equipment for digital systems, electronics and power systems. We will procure practical assessment pass materials for all technical specialization and agricultural technology. Supply laboratory apparatus for teaching sciences, supply laboratory apparatus for technical sciences, and also supply engineering graphic designs, drawing equipment for the grade 8 and 9 learners in the 28 technical and comprehensive schools. As of 2020, we intend to declare some of our secondary schools as focal schools as a delivery model for the 3-stream model. We will declare 28 secondary schools as technical vocational schools. These schools will offer specializations in automotive, electronical technology, civil and civil technology. We are starting in the 2020 academic year to establish 3 technical schools in Karib districts. We will procure automotive workshop equipment and machinery for Wangaletu Secondary School in Betule in 2020 and Rikaele Secondary School in Kofifontein in 2021 and Warabelo Secondary School in Dagasfontein in 2020. The importance of artistic skills as part of STEM subjects cannot be emphasized. The Riamuhetu Secondary School in Botshabelo has also been identified to be converted into an Artican school. It will focus on arts-related subjects such as the dance, arts, and visual art. A contractor has been appointed, and the site handover has been done on the 16th of March this year. This project is anticipated to be completed by March 2021, and we plan to establish 2 model art schools in the next 4 years in the province. And the Free State is a breadbasket of our country. It is befitting to declare 12 secondary schools as agricultural focus schools. In 2019, the tourism sector contributed 8.5% to the country's GDP and is perceived as a new goal in our economy. We plan to declare the 2 schools as hospitality schools in 2020. Access to learning materials to assist teaching is central to the provision of a quality education. In 2020, we will finalize the provincial LTSM policy to guide procurement, management, retrieval, and disposal of textbooks. We have developed a plan to replace LTSM at an estimated cost of 177 million over a 3-year period. In 2020, we will procure the new LTSM for grade 1 to 3 and grade 10, as well as the new grades for Section 20 and partial Section 21 schools. In 2021, we'll procure for grade 4 to 6 and grade 11, as well as the new grades. And in 2022, grade 7 to 9 and grade 12, as well as the new grade. Under inclusive education, Madam Deputy Speaker, in the spirit of raising the bar, closing the gap, and leaving no child behind, we finally found a formula to support learners with visual impairments. It has long been our desire to also create for them a school environment that supports their unique abilities and doesn't hold them back, thus infringing on their constitutional right to basic education. We acknowledge as the biggest obstacle is not blindness, but the world that cannot see beyond it. I'm happy to announce that we have prioritized provisioning of braille textbooks for Tibulua and Bartimia schools for hard of hearing, deaf, and visually impaired learners. By the end of 2019, the following master copies have been ordered and some delivered to schools already. This includes the maths, mathematics, grade 11 to 12, language books for grade 4 to grade 12, and consumer studies for grade 10 to 12, life orientation for grade 10 to 12, social sciences for grade 7 to 9, economic and management science for grade 7, and history for grade 10 to 12. We have also extended these services to cover economic management science for grade 7 to 9. And technology, grade 7 to 9 and 37 titles for grade 1 and 2. In the current financial year, 8 million is allocated to ensure that all learners across the grades are provided with a braille textbook. As part of the 3-year LTSM plan, this financial year, we will spend 177 million to procure the textbook for grade R to grade 3 and grade 10 in 2021. We'll procure for grades 4 to 6 and grade 11. And in 2022, we'll procure for grade 7 to 9 and grade 12. Madam Deputy Speaker, as part of our pro interventions in financial year 2020-2021, we have set aside an amount of 15 million rand for dignity tax for girl learners covering schools in quintals.
MC Mohale, you are left with 5 minutes.
Okay. For in the quintals 1, 2, and 3. This time is small, Honorable Speaker. However, Speaker, I must indicate that the teachers are the agents of change. They must be loved and appreciated for the wonderful work that they are doing. And we congratulate all those teachers that are winners of the Provincial National Teachers Awards, which has Mr. Keswa from Sentinel Primary School in Mufutsanyana, Mr. Melesi from Navalsek, Mr. Lawrence from Monamudi in Lidweli Putswa, Mrs. Lawrence, from Monamudi Primary School in Lidweli Putswa, Mr. Nambani in Popano, Mr. Mahwale in Bonamelo, in Buaramelo Combined School in Kharib. I must indicate, Honorable Deputy Speaker, that there are some schools that are nearing the practical completion, which are Zastron, where we spent 56 million, which is Moefontein, Primary School, Tutoge Tebe in Bloemfontein, among others, Malebogo in Herzogsville for 51 million, the Opotswe Primary School in Bethlehem for 54 million, and Trolo in Botshabelo for 54 million, and Ruantsewo in Blokoland for 60 million rand. In conclusion, Speaker, we would like to thank, I would like to appeal to members of provincial legislature to work together to fight against the gender-based violence and racism. We also like to thank the employees at the department, the support that they are giving under the leadership of the head of departments towards NEC Mahwe. And we also acknowledge the support of his family in supporting him in driving the departments. And to all the SGBs, QLTC structures, principals association, and organized labor in our province who, despite daunting challenges brought about by the new coronavirus normal, a new normal, they continue to prioritize the future of our children above all else. We also thank our principals, SMT members, teachers, and non-teaching staffers in our schools for putting the interests of our learners on top of their priority list. The fact that we did not see eye to eye at all times should not make us arch enemies. So to all of you in the House for your ongoing hard work in ensuring that education is and always will be a priority. And last but not least, to our corporate partners, NGOs, CBOs, municipalities, provincial departments, especially the Department of Health and Social Development, universities and religious organizations for supporting us as we traverse the storm of novel virus in the province. I therefore, Speaker, present this budget before the House of the department, which amounts to 15 billion. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mohale. Let me give over to Honorable Thabo Meku, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee. Over to you, Ntate Meku.
Speaker, thank you very much. Let's thank MEC Makalo for holding the fort while we extend our well wishes messages to MEC Tate for speedy recovery. Indeed, Speaker, we welcome the speech, but at the same time, we also welcome the address of the President yesterday, and most importantly and relevantly on the matters of educations and school reopenings. We are convinced, Speaker, that the majority of concerns raised by the stakeholders, parents, civil society at large, as well as the intelligentsia, in fact, many of our people, they have been attended by the address of the President yesterday. And I think the speech, MEC Makalo, is welcome also because it attended to many of these concerns. It is important, Speaker, for us that important issues must not escape us, especially during period of adversity. We are tested as a nation and as a people, and we owe it to humanity, past, present, and the future, that we must not fail. A known fact by now, Speaker, that the pandemic has hit South Africa 25 years after the attainment of democracy, which of course has seen many massive advances towards addressing the basic needs of our people. It's an important point to indicate. At the same time, Speaker, the persistence of inequality, poverty, and unemployment, and their racial, gender, and class, as well as even spatial development dimensions, still define our country till today. We want to stretch the point that we're making that the global economic crisis that broke 2007 and 8, compounded by subjective factors, had an adverse effect on the South African economy. And of course, Speaker, over the last few years, we've seen how levels of economic growth, rising unemployment, poverty, and inequality continues to ravage our people. And thus, because South Africa finds itself faced with global COVID-19 pandemic in the context of national and global challenges, threats, and opportunities, it is therefore imperative that through interventions against COVID-19 pandemic, we must pursue, we must continue to pursue an agenda to improve the lives of South Africans through radical socio-economic transformation. Peter, it is a pandemic, it affects the whole world. It is not only peculiar to South Africa, even in terms of the challenges that it is bringing to us. Of course, there are continuous pressures on public health combined with lockdowns. They themselves place considerable strain on the public as well as government capacity and legitimacy. Lockdowns and isolation measures themselves succeed with considerable public support because of their scale and the personal and economic hardships they impose. This requires consistent and effective communication as well as firm but also fair actions. If enforcement of the necessity measures is seen as insensible, the process poses a danger of illegitimacy and ineffectiveness. It is important to appreciate that any decision against the background of difficult decisions to find a balance, especially between life and livelihood, as well as with the economy and in particular safeguarding the future of our country, the great assets of any nation, our kids. But also equally appreciate the conditions of our country against the experiences and the situations in the third world countries. We are making this point, Chair, as we want to join the MEC in the current argument in the country about the reopening of schools, especially during this period of a peak. Because the requirement to save the 2020 school year is not irrational. But I think in our understanding and an attempt to be holistic in understanding the broad issues about the welfare of our children, the safety as well as their rights towards cognitive development. Concerns towards safety equally can't be dismissed, but must be addressed as part of strengthening our phased-in approach of different grades as declared by the department by the end of August, amid, of course, coronavirus peak in our country. It's a fact that we know there are infrastructural challenges, nutrition, transport, which are known to us. Generally, concerns around how inequalities, poverty, and all social ills confronting our people are finding expression in our country. And we remain committed, Speaker, not to lament, not to make them a political football, but to resolve this thing. That's the essence of the leadership. And we want to make an example that despite our challenges as a province, against all odds, the Free State has succeeded to contest with the big provinces, both in terms of resource and infrastructure. And consistently, we've been delivering good metric results. Of course, it is an indicator of our work throughout from primary up until secondary decisions. The decisions around our investment around education are known, 2009 up until now. MEC, we welcome the reassurance that the decision is entirely guided by the scientific knowledge and guidance, and of course evidence, as well as taking into account the socio-economic pressures facing the majority of poor learners who relies on the state for food and protection. At the same time, we caution that the cost of missing school will be huge for the young ones. Children will learn less and lose the habit of learning. Yes, of course, digital education should be idealistically a recourse, but as we all know that for poor children who are less likely to have good Wi-Fi and educated parents will fall further behind their better off peers. Indeed, the pandemic created further challenges for us, nowhere to drop their children to be able to return to work. Mothers bear the heavier burden and, of course, suffer a bigger career setback. Children out of school are more likely to suffer abuse, malnutrition, poor mental health. And, of course, the point is made that pandemic is widening the pre-existing gap between how much rich and poor children learn. The analysis of risk of keeping schools closed apparently outweighs the benefit as espoused even at an international level, affecting a number of countries differently owing to differences in our social makeup and dynamics. And unfortunately, some of these find resonance to our own challenges. For example, experts are most worried about the effects on the care child, who in the handful of places throughout the whole countries where schools have been open, for instance, in Vietnam, in Ivory Coast, teachers say that girls are notably absent. Some are getting married or being handed over to a new husband, possibly, of course, to manage the issues of fewer mouths that must be fed. So our point is that if schools close, idle doctors equally will be beset by all these manner of social ills in our societies. And that's why the argument makes sense that we've got to be able to balance the issue of the school reopenings as well as the closing of schools in a manner that is able to assist. We're making a point, MEC Makal, that in as much as World Health Organization recommendations are clear for all of us, but we think that they must be contextualized to our country. Whilst the World Health Organization has said schools should be ideally be open in the context of low community transmission, it is important to understand the situation of our country. And that's why President Ramaphosa's address yesterday is appreciated. That a break for a month during the period of a break for a month to allow the peak period to transcend is a strategic intervention. Expect advice accepted. Realities of our society integrated in terms of infrastructure problems, challenges of levels of capacity by different schools. And this is by no means accept the status quo, but appreciate work done and to be done after all these relations. When the World Health Organization is making recommendation, it is important to understand that it is doing so for 195 countries. But there's no one-size-fits-all approach. What makes sense for Germany may not make sense for South Africa. What makes sense for Korea does not make sense for Korea. For Malawi. They do have 1 million standard children. They don't have 1 million standard children, widespread HIV and TB, school feeding schemes, etc., etc. South Africans' own epidemiologists are advising that schools must stay open if we are to succeed to fight the pandemic exercise. Expert advice goes further to advise that children returning to school is what is best in the interest of the children. The South African Pediatric Association, the Ministerial Advisory Committee, and the South African Human Rights Commission have all stated clearly that they believe that children returning to school will be in the best interest of our children. The cost of being locked up at home are far greater than the small risk that they may face. And of course, children do not get severely ill from COVID-19 as opposed to those who are 70 and above. The other point that we made, Ms. Makal, is around the skill revolution. Of course, not only for fourth industrial revolution, but as well for post-COVID-19 economic recovery. Our province is known as for the highest concentration and fast-growing rates of poverty, unemployment, and inequality, worsened, of course, by historical patterns of apartheid special legacy and the migration labor system that constitute socio-economic and political day-to-day living experiences of the poor. It is under these conditions and daily realities of the poor.
You have 2 minutes.
As we conclude, Speaker, that indeed from 2009 up until today, Free State redoubled efforts towards skills revolution. Nobody can deny such history because it continues to make noise even today. Massive investment in bursaries, shaping curriculum contents towards the economy, encouraging postgraduate programs, including international studies. Both provincial and national economies benefiting, and we continue to be proud for such visionary leadership. Without hesitation, post-COVID economic vision demands we continue and streamline under this testing condition. We are benefiting and will continue to benefit. So for us, Chair, we rise as the ANC to support the budget vote. And thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Meku. Honorable Lute, over to you. You may address the House.
Thank you, Chairperson, Deputy Speaker. Actually, sorry. I hope my connection lasts. But let me start, Deputy Speaker. I understand the MEC also lost his brother recently. Our deepest condolences, and we wish him well. I can start with the roots of education are bitter, but the fruit is sweet. But Speaker, we can't afford to sugarcoat the trouble we are in anymore with cliches. The President's announcement last night, how difficult it may have been, will have a lasting effect on our children and their future, and even more so in the Free State. So from one father to another, I honestly hope that the MEC is just as concerned as I am about the future of our children. Consistently, the province's unemployment rate is amongst the highest in the country, and it doesn't improve. So I wonder if the MEC also lies in his bed at night, not being able to sleep, and wonder what he can do, as parents do, to change our dire situation. I hope the MEC is as concerned that research suggests that only 20% of grade 1s are able to read English with comprehension. We welcome some announcements by the acting MEC regarding this matter. Sound mother tongue education is vital for our learners, especially in primary education. That is where quality education begins. And during those sleepless nights, Deputy Speaker, we hope the MEC lies in his bed making plans, like parents do, to give his children the best possible chance in life. As senior member of the ruling party in the province, he should be able to counsel accordingly. Because as parents, our responsibility does not end the day our children finish school. As parents, we think beyond and try to give our children the best possible future.
Honorable Lute, you are lost. Honorable
Speaker, I will go on. The Free State's #1 matric results are nullified.
Honorable Lute, thank you very much. Your time has expired. Let me give over to Honorable Chabalala. Honorable Chabalala, you may address the House.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Let's also welcome we support the budget, vote 6 of Department of Education. And you must also remember, Honorable Deputy Speaker, that education remains the only tool that can change the lives of our people, particularly Africans, as we know that the freedom fighter, Dr. Nelson Mandela once said, while we celebrated the 65th anniversary of our Freedom Charter on the 26th of June in 2020, which declares that, and I quote, that all doors of education shall be open to all South Africans, both black and white, close quotes. Honorable Deputy Speaker, it is important to take into cognizance that the unpredicted situation which actually occurred in all parts of the world